Good evening. I have 5 p.m. on April 24th, 2025. I'd like to convene this session of the Select Board, the Sandwich Select Board, and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I'd also like to remind everyone that these proceedings are being televised and recorded by Sandwich Community Television. Anyone coming up to use the microphones, make sure that the green light is on and that you're speaking into the mic, please. Anybody here for public comment? Review and approval of minutes.
Make a motion we approve the minutes of 4/10/25.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hockner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Town manager report.
A couple of quick updates. The board meets next Thursday night, May 1st at usual time, 7 o'clock, upstairs at Town Hall. Earlier that afternoon at 4:30, the town moderator is hosting the pre-town meeting preparation meeting with town council and the town clerk. And again, that's slated for 4:30 over at 100 Route 6A in the lower level conference room. We typically go through the motions, but they actually are the motions. And we also will go through just each article. Shouldn't take too long. But again, town moderator Sean Roush is hosting that. Couple of other updates, somewhat interesting. This relates to the last time the canal was dredged, not the 111 project. So if you remember, that was 2 winters ago, not 1 winter ago. But I think the board's aware that anytime that happens, the town has to contribute a certain amount of money, because usually things like grass plantings and other things aren't included. And they give us an estimate. We have to submit whatever the amount is. And then they do an accounting at the end of the project. And if there's any money, they send it back to us. So great news. We got back just over $41,000 from that project. That will go back into the same account that we paid the money from, which is the 20% of the beach parking receipts for beach renourishment. And the timing is perfect because the right time to plant beach grass is the fall. So our goal is to bid that out late summer. And then on the 111 project, at least at Town Neck, to do the dunes, and we typically go about 1/3 of the way down the dune. So that'll be great. That'll cover most of that cost, but so that's a good use of those funds. And then when we get a little bit later on under, I guess, old business, Lisa in our office noticed a mistake that when we looked at the board's meeting schedule in June, I had accidentally scheduled something on a holiday. So we should cancel it that night, but we should talk about which week, the week before or after we want to meet. So when we get to that, we can talk that over. And then I think a couple of things Heather and I want to give updates on. One is we taped a brief session today, just like we usually do at Sandwich Community Television, to highlight all the articles at the Warrant so people can be informed. And I think in the beginning we highlighted that a lot of this background information, reference information, is all on the town's website, right on the homepage. So if anyone's interested, they can find out a lot of information there. And when you get the warrant itself, which is also online now, that it was formally posted last Thursday, there's actually more pages of reference material than there are pages of the actual warrant. So it might be a good resource if anyone's interested. And then we also have been trying to put out some unbiased publicity, just factual, about the Water Infrastructure Investment Fund ballot question, which is not on town meeting, but it's at the polls on May 8th, Thursday, May 8th. It's ballot question number 1, and it asks the voters to increase the WIF surcharge from 2% to 3%. So there's a lot of factual information that's been disseminated that Heather has organized and sort of led our efforts on. One question we had with the board is we talked a little bit, like, if the board, as a board, wanted to send like a letter to the editor of the paper. We could talk about that later. We could talk about it now. We have a draft in front of you. It's totally up to you guys. So again, we could do that now or under old business when we talk about the town meeting. We're really careful on the publicity that goes out. Like, it has to be just factual and unbiased. So it never says, please vote for this or please don't vote for this. It just says, what is the impact? Why are we doing this? What will the funds be used for? Things like that. So, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Add the thought process behind a letter to the editor is that we really focused on, the website and social media, which gets a certain audience. There are others that just read the newspaper who may not have access to the social media or choose not to participate in that. And it's just a forum for more complete communication coming from the leadership of the town. And, our thought is, if you are interested in doing so, this is a draft, but the board would consider authorizing the chairman to submit, subject to edits that we recommend. Only due to timeframes, the next meeting would be next Thursday, which would be too late to get out for publication.
Has everyone had a chance to take a look at this?
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah, okay.
You have any thoughts to share, or it's time for a motion?
Time for a motion?
Yeah, no, it's a good,
Make a motion, we adopt the draft drawn up by Heather to go to the newspaper with any changes that are allowed to be on it.
second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hockter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Thank you very much.
One other quick one about the WIF. We did take today the Cape conversation that Melinda Gallant hosts on SCT with Beth Como from the Realtors and Dave Mason and myself. So again, just to try to get information out there about wastewater in general and what the WIF does, but it was more focused, I would say, on Cape-wide wastewater efforts than just us. So Melinda and Bev did a great job. And I think Heather has one more.
Where can that be viewed?
Sandwich Community Television.
Thank you.
We'll also put it out on our website and media, so it'll be available as soon as we have it. We'll push that out as well.
Great, thank you.
Just a quick update on the Town Hall Annex. The timeframe for submittals passed on the 17th of April. We received one proposal. It appears not to have been submitted properly. I've submitted it to Town Council. I'm meeting with him tomorrow to review that. So it looks like that may be considered non-responsive. I can't confirm that yet, but it doesn't look good. Just from the way that it was submitted, doesn't meet the minimum standards that are required. And so the board just might want to think about that and want to schedule a time for next steps as soon as I have any clarification on that. If the town council finds that we could take it the next step, then we should probably have an executive session to review it and determine whether that's something the board desires us to do. If he finds that it is not compliant with the state process that we have to follow, then we're really back to the drawing board with the board as to how you'd like us to proceed.
Okay. Can we make this an agenda item for next week? Any other thoughts? We'll put it on the table and talk about it?
I think it's more telling of the times than,
Yeah.
the current, market for all this stuff, so.
The only caveat is if an executive session is warranted, we should make sure we hold it in the right forum.
Understood. Thank you. Any other thoughts? Okay. Correspondence, statements, and announcements. Well, on April 22nd, 2025, the town of Sandwich finalized the $3.3 million purchase of more than 86.5 acres of undeveloped property for water quality, preservation, and future wastewater infrastructure needs. The property, which encompasses 3 parcels on Discovery Hill Road and Colliers Way, was authorized and approved for sale to the town in late March by the United States Bankruptcy Court for the District of Massachusetts. The property has been purchased with funds allocated by town meeting through the town's Water Infrastructure Investment Fund, WIF. Acquisition of real property is an expressly allowed use of the WIF fund and does not require an additional town meeting vote. The purchase of this unique and rare large property offering is a major investment in the future of the town to meet its anticipated wastewater and water resource protection needs. The property acquisition will provide the town with sufficient acreage should a regional wastewater treatment solution at Joint Base Cape Cod not be achievable, to meet 100% of projected volume from all phases of our comprehensive water resources management plan. The town will likely set aside significant acreage for environmental and preservation purposes and will recover more than $440,000 in back taxes owed on the property. Thank you. Any other comments or observations?
I'd like to say one.
Sure, please.
When we looked at this a while ago, and I said to the board, I said, they're selling houses in town for $2 or $3 million, $4 million, one house with a small piece of land. We got almost 87 acres for the 3.3, and we get 400,000 back. It was almost like a deal that was a dream. So we worked on it, we accomplished it, and I think it was a great deal for the town of Sandwich, for the money. Thank you.
It was a group effort, and it all worked out well. I thank you, Mr. George. Okay. Staff meeting, public hearings. In accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 138, the Sandwich Select Board will hold a public hearing on Thursday, April 24th at 5:05 p.m. at Historic Town Hall Auditorium, 130 Main Street, Sandwich, Massachusetts, 02563, for the purpose of reviewing the town's schedule of fees and charges as provided under Section 2.60 of the town's bylaws. The Select Board is considering promulgating new fees or revising existing charges. Have a motion to open the public hearing?
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hockter. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Thank you.
This is me. I want to recognize that we have Nick Giordano, our harbor master, and Guy Boucher, our director of community services, here with us this evening. They're two members of a large working group, including public safety, recreation, and other town staff, taking a look at all of the beach and recreational area parking. This is the third time I think the select board has heard this, but it's the first time we're having a public hearing about a specific piece of this plan. I want to note that in addition to the two things we'll talk about this evening related to parking in the area of the marina, we have implemented a tool as part of our online application that allows the public to participate in town government, known as Sandwich 311, and to alert us to activities in the community that they're interested in or would like action taken on. We've created a tool that allows the public to file parking violations. And so that can happen remotely on anyone's personal phone, and that really is intended to help out both accessibility, parking issues, but
People
also...
say they can't hear you.
Oh,
Oh,
That was working.
thank you for pointing that out.
and I couldn't see that. That's better. I'm sorry about that.
You can do it.
So I won't go through the whole thing again, but just generally, we've been working on just what we can do to improve and expand parking access and turnover for multiple recreational areas. And this really is focusing on the marina. The select board has heard this presentation a few times. This is our first opportunity we have for a public hearing on the subject. We've created an application on what's known as Sandwich 311, which is an app you can use either remotely on your phone or on the website, and you can report parking violations. So if you see things that are in your neighborhood or in your community that you see as a parking violation, you can take a photograph of it with your phone, send it right in. It goes to the police department, and the police department will evaluate whether it's a violation and issue a violation if it is one. And I'm happy to meet with anybody to show them how to use that. It's really quite simple. And so that was just one of the initiatives that came out of that. We've also reinstituted a practice that the town had in the past where marina staff and recreation staff have parking enforcement ability. So that's really to address some of the issues we've seen in the recent past to help the police department, who often isn't able to immediately respond. Some of our field staff in both of those departments will be able to do that. Now, we are not a community that focuses on enforcement. That isn't our intent. Our intent is to have people park appropriately, and a lot of that will be some courtesy communication, at least initially. Another piece of that is to try and generate more turnover in lots, and one lot we've looked at is the public parking lot at the marina, which currently is for free. And we're looking at just the area of the marina parking lot, which is shown. Do we have a map of that? Did I give you a map of that? Yes, I did. Let's see, there's a map in your packet with a pin. The southern portion of the lot is used for trailer parking, and that will continue to be used for trailer parking for those that launch boats. The front public parking lot we're recommending as a pilot program for this year. We have access to a test license plate reader camera that we can use to implement a parking program in that parking lot. We're not interested in generating revenue. We're proposing a fee of $5 per day for that lot to test this summer to see whether that helps us generate turnover. We know we've had complaints from the marina folks that have marina stickers that they sometimes are looking to park and they don't have parking because the public parking has consumed that lot. So we're recommending that we study this year, implement a pilot program for this season with a $5 per day fee for that lot. And we worked really closely with the Harbor Masters Department and Guy, of course. They've spoken with all the restaurants in the area, and those that are right in the marina area are supportive of this, understanding.
That's the same type of device that's in use at the recycling station,
Correct.
et cetera?
It's pretty commonly used for parking.
Yes,
I
Bob.
have one question. That $5 fee per day, the people that use the boat ramp, now, do they go over and park their trailers there? Are they going to be charged?
No, the trailer parking will remain trailer parking. The public parking, if you have a marina sticker or you have a beach sticker, you can park without paying a $5 fee.
But the people that have the trailers, sometimes they park over there, they're not going to get charged an extra $5. Ramp? That's it, okay. Okay. All right.
The parking fees are just gonna go back into the general parking.
The beach parking account.
And then do we see, because I know the next item on the agenda, do we foresee this being a potential issue with the overflow from the street, then packing that parking lot?
The demand is there already.
Okay.
Its intent is to generate turnover.
I would almost ask if the fee's too light to generate turnover.
Do you have an alternative suggestion?
$10. I mean, we're charging 20 at the beach parking lot, right? I mean, it's 20, maybe if we went half of what the beach parking lot is, knowing that's, we're still, it's, half of the beach parking lot, you don't have the same access to the beach, which, I would say maybe go to $10 because it's not, I think it would, $5 is kind of like,
It's nothing.
it's a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
$10 might make you think.
And our thinking really was on the $5 is that it's a pilot program. We would like to see if it works or not.
Right.
We will make sure that folks that are going in for lunch don't feel like it's a burden to park in that lot where they normally have. So we're not open-minded. We had a broad range of proposals for fees, and we landed on 5. So there's no perfect number.
I would, I mean,
I feel 10 is, it's a,
beach, they have their,
I feel at 10 because the people are probably, we're doing this for a reason because it's probably being abused. So if they know they gotta pay $10, they probably won't go to park there. So $5 is like, yeah, I'll go park there, pay $5. So I'm agreeing with you when we jump it to 10.
right.
You think?
Okay, does anyone from the public have any comment on this issue?
You can come down to the microphone,
Step up to the microphone, please.
get to be on TV.
Okay.
Very good.
Hi, I'm Bernadette Pato from 26 Town Neck Road. My question is, are we talking about the parking where the dry boats are for the sailboats? There. Okay, now what about the shuttle bus that Treehouse has there, and they shuttle their people to their establishment? Is that going to I mean, I don't understand what the purpose would be. I mean, I like them being charged $20, to tell you the truth, because they take all the parking at the beach for $20, and they stay there all day long, and it makes it very difficult for the residents to go down, and we have the stickers. So if we have a sticker, we can park all our cars there and give them no place to park. Is that my understanding?
If you have a sticker, you can park there, yes.
Okay. All right, that was my question. Thank you very much.
The next episode of Parking.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Okay. Motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hocker. Roll call vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous.
I think, just for clarification, it's a fairly small lot. It's about, I'm guessing about 30 spaces. The public area? Oh, okay,
Because there's 4 rows, I think.
yeah.
Mr. George,
Okay, make a motion, we go with a new fee for the marina parking, change it from $5 to $10 per day.
Second.
motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hocker. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's reasonable, thank you. And it's, as you said, Ms. Harper, it's an experiment, so we'll see how it works out.
No charge if people have a town sticker or if they have a slip at the marina and they have marina sticker.
And we track those by the plate anyway, so that if you legally have a Town of Sandwich Beach sticker that's registered with the town, you will not get charged.
Okay. Amending traffic rules and orders of the rules and regulations to prohibit parking on Gallo Road, east side from Town Neck Road to Ed Moffett. Assistant Town Manager Heather Harper will provide the presentation, but in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 22, the Sandwich Select Board will consider amending the Town of Sandwich Rules and Regulations, Traffic Rules and Orders section to prohibit parking on Gallo Road, east side from Town Neck Road to Ed Moffett. The Select Board will consider this amendment to the traffic rules and order on Thursday, April 24th, 2025, at 5:10 PM or thereabouts at Historic Town Hall Auditorium, 130 Main Street, Sandwich, Massachusetts, 02563. Motion to open the public hearing?
Make a motion, we open the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hockner. Roll call vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Ms. Harper.
So this relates to a proposed prohibition of parking on the east side of Gallo Road. You may know that on the west side of Gallo Road, there's been a lot of informal parking and informal on the east side as well. We've enhanced the access on the west side, have done some clearing and some minor improvements to really illustrate that we encourage parking on the west side. As a result of the discussion of trying to increase parking opportunities, the public safety departments really felt that there's been enough challenges, particularly in the evening, when there's a lot of parking on both sides of the road, that they were concerned about safety for public safety vehicles, and asked that we come to you and seek no parking on the east side of that road. And the same case goes, thanks to Nick and Guy. The restaurants in the area were approached about that, and they all recognized, and I think some of them even said that they've had some concerns about that area themselves, and so welcome the safety change there. We'll continue to look at what options there are to increase parking opportunities. We're hopeful that some will arise in the not-too-distant future, but for now, safety is foremost, and we do recommend that we prohibit parking.
And just for clarification, the east side of the road is the side that the Pilot House and Superior Lobster are on. It's the business side, not the...
Correct.
Right.
Does anyone from the public have any comments?
No, you have to come on down.
State your name and address and make sure the green light is on, please.
There you go.
Okay, sorry. Rich Pardo, 26 Town Neck Road. I think it's a good idea to have the parking on the road, and but I was thinking too, it's just a suggestion, if we do, are you planning on doing parallel parking or angle parking? Because if it's parallel parking, I feel as though you won't be able to establish enough cars. But I was thinking if we do angle parking, like you have down in Marina where people pull in, okay, you'll be able to accommodate more cars and maybe put signs up saying no overnight parking, cars will be towed at owner's expense, to discourage them from parking there overnight, because I live there, I walk, and I play a little game in the morning when I walk. Okay, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 17 cars here. There's 12 cars here. Ooh, there's 14 at the pilot's house. They must have had a real good time last night, and they're parked there. So I think that would discourage that, and to keep the traffic flowing. That was my thought. More cars will be able to park at angle parking, so we'll be able to bring in more money.
So that, just to be clear for the board's benefit, we're not proposing a fee for that area. That's on-street parking like we have in many areas through town.
Okay.
The town engineer's taken a look at the parking pattern. I believe he's recommending parallel for safety reasons. We did look very seriously at what the alternatives are, and we've increased. There's a small turnout, and we've added some potential spaces there as well. So we've added a little bit there. Again, we'll continue looking at it. If it looks like an alternative makes sense for next year, we'll take another look at it.
Like I said, it was just a thought that I had. I said we could accommodate more cars if we could do an angle parking. things and just put signs up, you know,
Yep.
no overnight parking or something like that. Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Okay. Motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hockter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye, it's unanimous. Just in my own head, I made the presumption that it's parallel parking that we're discussing, right? Okay, I'm not crazy. Well, not in that respect, anyway.
It's going to remain parallel parking, and I think there's some wetlands close by that are not going to allow for the hanging parking, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think there's enough
Right.
area. I don't think there's enough
Yep,
room in there.
yep.
Okay. Make a motion, we accept amending traffic rules and orders of the rules and regulations to prohibit parking in Gallo Road, the east side, from Town Neck Road to Ed Moffett Road.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hockter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next one. Ms. Julie Longa is here, I believe, from the right-of-way agent from Eversource N-Star, doing business as Eversource Energy, to request permission to install one fully owned pole, number 915822 on Tupper Road. And if we can open the public hearing, the Sandwich Select Board will hold a public hearing on Thursday, April 24th at 5:15 PM in Historic Town Hall Auditorium, 130 Main Street, Sandwich, Massachusetts, 02563, upon the petition of N-Star Electric Company, doing business as Eversource Energy, to request permission to locate and relocate poles, wires, cables, and fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures to be owned and used by the petitioner along and across the public way or ways for one fully owned pole, number 9158/22 on Tupper Road, work order number 201-06940. Anyone wishing to be heard will be afforded an opportunity at that time. Motion to open the public hearing.
Make a motion, we open the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second, Mr. Hockter. Roll call vote, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The public hearing is open.
Hi again, I'm Julie Longa from
Longa, yes.
Eversource. And, we are requesting a proposed pole on Tupper Road, 9158/22. There are existing poles there right now that currently don't have any wire. They came down in a storm. And we are going to be using those poles to upgrade system. And we needed this as a mid-span pole because the distance was too long.
Thank you, Ms. Longa. Now, we have a letter on the DPW that they have no objections. Does anyone from the public have any comment and/or questions? Okay. Motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hockter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye, it's unanimous. Okay.
All right. Let's see. Make a motion, we accept the proposal to install one pole fully owned, number 915822 on Tupper Road.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hockler. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we'll be hearing from Kristen Leduc, Network Building and Consulting, Verizon New England, Inc., and NStar Electric Company, doing business as Eversource Energy, to request permission. And as we have under the public hearing warrant here, the Sandwich Select Board will hold a public hearing on Thursday, April 24th at 5:20 p.m. in Historic Town Hall Auditorium, 130 Main Street, Sandwich, Massachusetts, 02563, upon the petition of Verizon New England, Inc. and NStar Electric Company, doing business as Eversource Energy, to request permission to install one joint-owned pole number 5/14.5 on the east side of Great Hill Road at a point approximately 26 feet east from the driveway at 83 Great Hill Road and approximately 130 feet west from existing pole number 5/15, plan number 1A, 7A, P2S, and install one joint-owned pole number 24/12.5 on the west side of 280 Route 130 at a point approximately 267 feet south from existing pole number 24/12 and at a point approximately 100 feet north from existing pole 24/13, plan number 1A, 7V, 9ET. Install 10 joint-owned poles, 24/13.5, 14.5, 15.5, 16.5, 17.5, 18.5, 19.5, 20.5, 21.5, 22.5 on the west side of Forestdale Road, beginning at a point approximately 346 feet south from existing pole number 24/12 and ending at a point approximately 352 feet north from existing pole 24/23 under plan number 1A, 7Z, 5JB. Anyone wishing to be heard will be afforded an opportunity at that time. Motion to open the public hearing.
Make a motion, we open the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Sir, could you identify yourself?
Sure. I am stepping in for Kristen. My name is Michael Walnagevich, and I work for Network Building Consulting. We're a vendor for Verizon. And all three of these requests came over from Eversource, actually. So we jointly own the poles. So want me to just go right into the very first one?
Please.
The very first one, it's a mid-span pole. It's required because all the communication lines are sagging greatly. The separation distance between the two opposite poles are over 200 feet, which is, in a residential area, not really acceptable. So we need to put a mid-span pole in there to correct. I can almost run up and jump on, grab hold of them. So we need to get that corrected as soon as possible. And it's putting more structural, stresses on the two opposite poles. So we like to correct that.
Okay. Any questions?
So and that's for the first one, or do we want to, the 10-pole section, is that similar construction, or is that in preparation for an upgrade for projects down the road?
10-pole one is for an upgrade for Eversource. They need to upgrade all the cable lines overhead, and it's part of a Department of Public Utility approved matter for any existing and new solar farms. So they need to do an upgrade for that. So they need to upgrade all the poles for that.
Now, I'm going to ask the follow-up question because we had, there's an application, I believe, that's in for believe what we call the Forestdale Village at this point, where they're trying to put a solar farm in. And I know that the electric had to be upgraded all the way to that site. Is this part of that project, or is this just a, in general upgrade? Is it specifically for that, or is this just?
I'm actually not given that information of who the final end user is. They must have received an order, Eversource. Any chance, would you happen?
Because I believe the I believe the applications are in for that with the state. Yeah, I think they went before the state for the solar on that. So the 10 poles are for the existing solar?
It's a system upgrade approved by the Department of Public Utilities for all solar installs existing and new. The new poles needed to support the size and construction of the overhead cable.
I have to assume,
Yeah, it's just, I don't want to, I don't know, maybe yeah.
I have a question, actually. You may not know. Do you know this, if this is funded by the solar developer, or is this initiated by Eversource? Is it a application response?
this is initiated from Eversource over to Verizon. That's about as far as I could speak on that. So there must have been some type of, I have to assume, neighboring solar farm or future solar farm coming on board that needs this upgrade done before they can obviously attach to the grid.
Ms. Longo, would you like to join in the conversation?
So I wasn't aware that it's for a particular, but it is new and existing solar installs. So it could very well be tied into that new solar farm, but not requested by them.
It's an upgrade regardless, right?
Right.
And that's your perspective as well, Mr. Ryan?
Yes, I would also assume it could also be an expansion if they're adding to the existing. We're just not given those type of details.
You know, yeah, I mean, my only knee jerk is, and my hesitation, the first one I don't think I have a problem with because it's just a, it's a standard span thing. The 10 pole thing, I just don't, if it is for the project that's not approved yet, I just don't want to feel like we're getting an end around run on us,
The list of abutters on that one,
Right.
not the 1 pole, but the 10 pole, it's, a lot of it's Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Otis, i.e. the base. There's the Cape Cod Eye Care, Cape Cod 5. So those are all right along, sort of near where Canterbury is, but
Yes.
on the backside where the town cemetery is.
Right.
So I don't think it goes down, for example, past the lights in the Forestdale School. It's more, it's further north from that.
Yeah, no, I know, it's just that when we talked to the Eversource rep was here, they were saying that that's where it starts to come down for that project, that they would have to upgrade that whole 130 corridor, and if that's the start of it, and it's not, look, it just, for me, it's, one of the hurdles that they have to prove is that they have the money to upgrade the electric system. That was one of the requirements that was put on them. And, the difficulty that they've had with the town, I just don't want to see, potential end around where we're opening a door for them that they need to cross themselves. That's my only hesitation. Is that,
I did happen to notice on the drive down here, the 10 poles in question, because I had to drive down to Mashpee. And some of those poles are, you can tell, aged, and perhaps maybe a fatigue. Maybe it's not a bad public safety item as well.
right? I don't know, that's just my,
And again, I'm sorry, go ahead. If our DPW has no issue with this.
If that's that one stretch, it's almost all like federal government, state government, us, in some larger businesses, not really many, if any, residences. I don't know, it didn't look like there was a single homeowner listed as an abutter. But
That's the way I read it as well, and the private industry is paying for it. Anybody from the public?
I mean, if the board had concerns, we could find out more, and we could continue the public hearing, to a future meeting, if that would help.
Would it hamstring you guys at all?
No, I mean, if you wanted to hold open that particular plan, we can certainly do a continuance on it and get more information for you.
You could approve, there's two separate independent polls. You could
Yes.
approve those and then hold open for the other.
Yeah, those I don't have that I didn't have, but it's the 10 poles going down, in a roll, that's the only one I would just hit the pause button on myself personally. The other two are standard, like pole replacements, or mid-span.
When I drove through, they're negative. It was only one side.
It's just showing the one side, like the two road split. Because on the 10-pole one, there was a map, but it's see, but then they jump across the street too. On both sides, right? Right. I didn't see it on the other one. I think it was all just, and then it just goes down to one side, and that's the support pole.
All right, well, we can discuss it further, and we can decide to break it off, too. But do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Okay. Make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hockner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Okay, now, can we discuss our concerns?
I would just like them to come back on those 10 poles. The other 2 poles I'm fine with, but the 10 pole, I just want to make sure that that wasn't tied in with the application for down the street as part of an electric upgrade before we've had a chance to review or have an objection to those, to the project, in my opinion. That's.
Okay, so we can approve the.
I would just say, if you wanted to continue it, you could say next Thursday, and you could do it to a time certain, like 7:30. That way, we don't have to re-advertise, and we can put it on the agenda as such next week.
It would really be just separating the 10 poles out,
Yeah.
so it would just be doing the first 2. I have no problem with it. If anybody else has any, we could approve the first 2 and then continue the 10 poles. If that makes sense.
Okay, let's do it this
Can we
way
make a
then.
motion?
Let's do it this way then, please. Let's have a motion specific to plan number 1A7A P2S, please.
Correct.
And make a motion, we approve plan, Great Hill Road, 1A, 7A, P2S.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Second by Mr. Hockner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Okay, then a motion to approve or disapprove of plan number 1A 7V 9 ET.
Okay, we make a motion, we approve the plan, the pole 280 Route 130, plan 1A 7V 9ET.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hockner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Now, how do we want to address the 10 joint old poles on Forestdale Road, west side of Forestdale Road?
Do you want me to make a motion?
Make a motion to come back with more information, I guess. Make a motion that we request more information on 10 joint old poles, Forestdale Road Plan 1A, 7Z, 5JB.
7:30 at 7:30 PM on May 1st.
Okay, 7:30 PM, May 1st.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hockner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 3 ayes and 1 no. Okay.
Maybe we can talk between and just figure out. I doubt it's related to that project because it's so far north, but I don't know. We'll check on that.
If you,
Okay.
if you can give me 5 minutes, I can jump on my computer
Yeah.
and see if they identified an end user. I mean, that's specifically what you're looking
Yeah.
for, to who the end user is.
Yeah.
Usually that's not provided to me, but I have somewhere in my computer I can do a quick dig.
Might be worth knowing. Yeah.
You want to give him a timeout?
Yeah, but you wanted, well, we voted on it, do we need to wait 5 minutes or?
You could rescind your motion and just,
Yeah,
yeah.
all right, so I'll make a motion that we rescind the prior motion,
Sorry.
yeah, up until the end of the meeting to reconsider.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Hockner, second by Mr. George, to rescind the original motion.
Just till the end of the meeting, he's gonna check right now.
I suppose the other way you could do it is not rescind the motion now. We could do the other things on the agenda. You guys look on the computer, and then you could let us know, and then we could reconsider then if we needed it, or we just
Yeah.
hold it off. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't know, just
You know, then we don't have to take an action
Yeah.
because we
We've already done,
already took an action,
okay.
which we can reverse.
Well, okay, okay, let's do it that way.
So I'll
Okay,
withdraw my motion.
Thank you.
okay.
We'll buy you time with some really
I will
exciting stuff. Let me tell
go
you.
really fast.
Okay. Old business, fiscal year 2026 budget update.
Yeah, so this is a little bit exciting, but at least it's substantive. So included in your packet are the same summary pages that we've had for months now, but you know, the recommended budget as voted by the Select Board and Finance Committee, that's being presented to town meeting. And then behind it are the 3 pages of the supporting documents on what each departmental budget looks like last year to the next year. And there's a same list that we've been looking at for a while on the recommended capital items that again have been recommended by both the Select Board and the Finance Committee. So late last week, the House released their cherry sheet information. So I won't bore you to tears on the 2 pages with like a lot of numbers comparing like what that is versus what we propose to town meeting. So if you look at the 1-page summary that we often do, and at the top in red, it says House cherry sheets. Again, it's too late to change budgets at town meeting, but the great news, which we had hoped all along, is it makes the bottom line even better. What's a little bit unique, which we don't want to go there yet, but like, you know, because the state budget's not finalized, the way it works is the governor, then the House, which just got released a little bit later than usual. Then probably in a month, we'll see the Senate. Then there'll be a conference committee probably in mid-July, and then ultimately back to the governor. So there still is a long way to go. But if you plug in the numbers that the House updated, one thing that is nice is it includes a more accurate information on things like tuition assessments, which we worry about all the time. So the bad news there is where we thought, based on the enrollment numbers that we got from the school, the enrollments are down by like 20-some charter students. But as you'll see, the state has proposed a 10% increase in our assessment, which is almost $500,000. So that's on the bad side. On the good side, they proposed a significant increase in our charter reimbursements. I couldn't explain, even though we've looked at it for a long, long time, how the state formulas work, and we just do with what they tell us. So if you plug in the numbers that the state gave us, you know, we went from a positive balance of like 50,000 to 480,000. So we're on the good side. So no need to panic, no need to change anything for town meeting. We still need to ride the wave for a couple more months before the state budget's finalized, and we'll see what it looks like then. But it was good news in the sense that with the new numbers, we still look good.
Thank you. Any questions for Bud?
Just a chuckle when you hear about the state resolving its budget for last year, next summer.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, just another day in the legislature.
Yeah. And in the scheme of things, like our town meeting is common for the Cape, but it's a little bit later than towns like near Boston. So it's probably good we get the extra month, you know? So then transitioning to the annual town meeting, two main things. The warrant was fully signed, as you know, by the select board and by the constable, and was posted last Thursday. It's at the printers as we speak. And as I said in the manager report earlier, that the town moderator's pre-town meeting preparation meeting with town council and the town clerk is next Thursday, May 1st at 4:30, so it would be late afternoon before our meeting. The difference is that it's at 100 Route 6A, and that's open to the public if anyone's interested in coming in the downstairs conference room. So I think we're good to go. Town reports came in this week, which is nice. A beautiful picture of the boardwalk on the front, so if anyone's interested, we have them in our office and in many of the offices at 100 Route 6A, and it will be online as soon as we get an electronic version from the printer, which usually is a bit, because they're really busy this time of year. So that's all good. I think we have info.
Okay, Mr. Ryan, are you ready?
Hey, that's pretty fast.
Okay.
Technology.
Okay, so we dug into an internal system, and so it's actually an internal Eversource requirement for all the needs. It's not an end user to a particular solar farm, it's just the demand. They need to do their own upgrade.
Yep, I'm good.
Okay.
Do I make a motion?
Well,
On the, right, the 10 poles.
yeah, we have to withdraw the first
Okay.
one.
So I'll make a motion to withdraw the continuance of the public hearing for the west side of Forestdale Road regarding Plan 1A 7Z5JB.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Hockter, second by Mr. George, that the original motion is being rescinded. All those in favor?
Aye.
I just have a question.
Sure.
Because we continued it, the public hearing is technically still open. We don't have to have a motion to open the public hearing again?
I don't believe so, because you closed the public hearing, right?
Right.
I think. So I think you're good.
Okay. Okay.
That's how I remembered it as well. What that's worth, but that's how I remembered it as well.
Yeah, 'cause we closed it, and then it was a administrative. Right. All right, do you want a motion?
Please.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the west side of Forestdale Road Eversource poles. There's 10 poles, 20, and they all start with 24, but it's 24, 13 and a half, 14 and a half, 15 and a half, 16 and a half, 17 and a half, 18 and a half, 19 and a half, 20 and a half, 21 and a half, and 22 and a half under Plan 1A 7Z5JB.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Hockter, second by Mr. George. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you, sorry about the trauma.
All right. Good job.
to opioid abatement fund recommended expenditures. Ms. Harper?
So I have a brief slideshow. I won't focus on every slide, but we've had a significant working group members that I think you're all familiar with. They're listed here that have been working on this project for over a year, almost 2 years of effort with the community, reviewing with the design team, as well as with the working group itself. I just want to recognize Mr. Boucher, who's on the working group, has been part of the design team and really essential to a really interesting and I hope effective community engagement process that's led to some recommendations. Again, the working group convened in 2024. We had about $120,000 we were looking at appropriating. You all know that the number one priority for those funds that are available between 2023 and 2038 was the hiring of a full-time social worker, and those opioid funds are now appropriated to the town budget on an annual basis to support that position. We've already seen great improvements to having an individual on board working with the police department, as well as having office hours at the Center for Active Living, and has a great support team. And I think it really has built a program that wouldn't have existed prior and wouldn't have existed had we not been engaged in this process and really working together on focusing on the impacts of opioid addiction on the community. We engaged a professional facilitator to help us reach a community that we normally don't have involved in local government. We created a small design team to help facilitate that, and a lot of that was really personal outreach to encourage individuals to attend and join us in that conversation. We had a large meeting in May of 2024. As a result of that meeting, we had some debriefing and identified some focus groups that needed to happen. We felt there were some missing gaps in the information that we had, and that included the schools, and that isn't just the Sandwich Public Schools, but the Riverview School, some of the other, the Upper Cape Regional Vocational School. We had a nice meeting with about at least 20 people there in August. We met with healthcare professionals, feeling that we didn't hear enough from them. We also had a small group meeting. It was a very personal meeting with 2 members of our design team that met with folks that are in active addiction to find out what their needs are really from the community of Sandwich. Again, then at that point, we did bring on our full-time social worker. And then we had the design team kind of prepared what we felt the themes from the process were. And we brought that back, not just making decisions ourselves, we brought that back to a working group, including those that are in active recovery, to sort of test what we'd worked on to make sure we were getting it right. We then prepared recommendations for the working group, the design team. They approved those recommendations 2 weeks ago on the 15th of April, and we're here this evening to just review those with you. Again, not to hide the lead, but this really is about the funding and how we're proposing to use those funds. There's $1.5 million in total committed in the funding strategy that we have here, and I really want to reinforce that, and that includes the social worker's salary over the time period from now through 2038. We're committing to that, to using those funds, as that's number one priority. There have been some recent stories that towns aren't spending these funds. We're committing these funds. The town of Sandwich is making a commitment to spend those funds on mental health and opioid addiction support programs. We expect to see about $1.6 million based on current estimates between now and 2038. So we've got enough to cover what we're recommending for programming. We engaged, I'd say 80 community members. 80 community members participated in the first focus group. To avoid recounting people, I'm sticking with that number, but I'd say it was more than 100 individual community members participated in this program. We identified 7 issue areas, 5 approaches, and 18 total strategies. As of last week, we have a current fund balance of a little over $502,000. So we're in good shape, but we are committed to spending over that time period. Again, we used a variety of engagement tools. This is a tool called Mural that we worked with our facilitator to use, and it really helped us distill a lot of information and get that into categories that made sense. The themes that emerged were housing, transportation, prevention in general. There was a lot of discussion about youth prevention being a priority distinct from general prevention, support services in the community, support groups, and community collaboration, and just a great feeling. I think Guy would attest from the process we were engaged with that alone really just built a community around this issue and a dialogue that hadn't occurred in the past. So housing, of course, we know that sober homes, sober living scholarships, and really just long-term housing is essential to recovery and long-term recovery. Transportation, the vehicles equal jobs, a way to make a wage, and is important to the journey through sobriety, recovery and sobriety. Prevention for treatment for those under the age of 18, an area I think we're going to have a lot of trouble addressing from the long-term care point of view, but providing some programming in the community is something we think we can do with the funds that we have. Having more community conversations about addiction in general and opioid addiction, to support those under 18, to support aftercare detox in the community of care, something we talked a lot about and have seen improvements in the region since we started the conversation. Providing support groups here in Sandwich and in safe places, and to continue to have the conversation to decrease shame, stigma, and silence, which I feel like we're doing by having this discussion and all those that we've had. Community collaboration continued to come up, collaboration with the schools, and you note that we did have a unique meeting with the school community, but Nicola Bordelon, the public health nurse, has been very engaged in this process from the beginning. And then just continued connection with police, fire, community services, and medical professionals, which I feel like we've made some strides on just internally within our own community to make those connections. Access to improved outreach for families, grandparents raising children, anyone that's impacted by the disease. A goal to create some kind of a service recovery center in the community. You may know that the Sandwich Cares program, which is a completely voluntary program run by an individual in our community, Lana Atamian, who's a member of our community, and she has moved Sandwich Cares from the library, which is great, but to the Center of Active Living, where there's a lot more engagement that can happen with the community at that location. There's a real source of pride around that happening. Not that the library isn't great, I'm sure they'll come back, but just being in an active place felt like a real win for them. Again, the idea of providing a way to have a drop-in center, community navigators, having people in the community that really know what the resources are. There are a vast number of resources with varying degrees of access, and just understanding what those are is really important to the public health and recovery. Again, mental health and awareness and support, we really just recognize that addressing mental health in the community in general is a way to help folks that are suffering from opioid addiction, as there's a direct correlation between mental health and obviously self-medicating with opioids. Again, another tool that we used, you're not expected to read this, but we did test our own priorities and established those. And then when we met with the group in active recovery, did the same thing again and found that they aren't exactly the same, but very close in alignment in terms of what we see the community priorities are. Again, 5 approaches to address these and use the funds that we have really the luxury to have in our community. Those include issuing targeted RFPs, using the professionals that we have in our communities to provide supportive services, use the resources that we have for wellness recovery programming, to provide support activities, and to continue the resource communication that we have going. And again, I'm not going to read all this to all of you, but it was a pretty intense process to get to where we recommended. And you have a sheet in front of you that identifies the areas that we've recommended, and that includes housing assistant, targeted offset for transportation, recovery support and prevention, and that's a big number of $85,000, and that would include an additional $50,000 from what had been previously appropriated. And the recommendation there is that we felt that the value that we had left remaining for this program wasn't sufficient for a multi-year contract, and that to really be successful in these programs, you need to provide them with consistency and continuity, and that the $85,000 to $90,000 range could give us 2 to 3 years worth of really good programming in the community, and we could issue an RFP for multiple years. And we, of course, if it's not working, we don't continue it. Professional support services for the social worker, that's funded through the budget. youth and adult sober programming, and this would be for the Center for Active Living and the Recreation Program to staff sober programming, which they have done in the past, but this provides some funding for staffing to make that happen. Peer recovery coach or advisor to the working group if we need it, to get some real professional advice on how to continue programming or advice on how well things are going or what the programming we should be focusing on for that calendar year. We really believe that a speaker event through the schools and through the community, 1 or 2 would make a lot of sense to bring the community together. It's happened in the past, but great speakers like Chris Herron really do change the psychology of young people when you have someone that they can relate to speaking about their experience with opioids and drug use and addiction. And then the support activities, sober programming for teens, we may want to bring some teens and adults some contracted services for that. Future facilitation, we really found having a professional facilitator made a big difference in getting feedback from people that aren't accustomed to providing feedback. And we may want to do a check-in next spring to see how we're doing, or next fall. And then we have a resource directory that is nearly complete. We may want to print that, so this will provide some printing costs for that. But all of this will be posted to a web page that we'll create, and we'll have this material available. And that was really the reason behind the PowerPoint. It was to have some documentation of the effort that's been made and the effort that intends to be made moving forward. So lots of work to continue to do. We have a superior group of individuals at the staff level involved, and they've really stuck with it. One of the things we've really been dedicated to is making sure that one of us attends all of the Sandwich Cares meetings. I know some of you do that, but we generally try to have at least 1 or 2 of us there at those meetings. We have a regional meeting with the Upper Cape towns of Bourne, Sandwich, Falmouth, and Mashpee coming up on the 30th. It will be our second regional meeting. Barnstable County will join us. So we can get a sense of what they're doing, what's working well for them. We really feel like we ought to be hiring the same service providers if they're successful, because more than likely they're going to see the same folks and can get a better feel on how to provide the best services for our region. We all think that if we can do it better together would be the most efficient way to use the limited funds that we do have. So a lot of work that's happened in the last year and a half, a lot of work to continue, but we would be looking for your approval for really specifically the concept of the funding strategy, and then particularly for $150,000 that would take us through a couple of years. And then we'll come back and see what we've got available and what we think we can recommend for spending. Thank you.
Any questions?
Do you need a motion on that, or?
Well, yes, we do, but any questions for Heather? I see that there's a member in your working group. It's an impressive group of people, and there's a school department employee on it. Does the school department endorse this effort specifically?
To the administration or to the school committee, but we certainly have had Nicola Bordelon involved, and I know she does communicate with her colleagues.
Okay, yes, she's an impressive member.
What I will say is what we've tried to do is not to recommend funding for things that already happen. So the recommendations here are for new initiatives, not to fund programs that already exist.
I get it.
Make a motion the board support the working group recommendations, targeted RFPS, professional community support services, wellness and recovery, and sport activities, a sum of $150,000.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hockner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and enthusiastically. Aye.
Thank you very much.
Other matters not reasonably anticipated by the chair under old business, I
Can I
have
mention?
none. Oh,
Yeah,
please
just
go right ahead.
2 quick ones. So I did, again, as I mentioned, I think earlier, There was an error in terms of scheduling our meetings in June, so the second meeting in June that's highlighted in red should be not a meeting, because we're closed that day. And just looking in green, you weren't planning on meeting on either side of it, but we should meet one of those 2 nights, and I'm just trying to guess where June 3rd, we're not having a meeting, so you're not missing, more than 2 in a row. Probably want to look at that June 26th date. Does that make sense to everybody? And that's far enough away from the holidays, shouldn't be too bad. Right.
Yes.
So I'll get a revised schedule out at our next meeting. And just to put the bug in here, it seems like I don't think there's anything we work on more constantly the last many, many years than wastewater. And I know we shared with you that we had what we thought was an important meeting with the state treasurer's office, that there were concerns that were raised about our efforts to try to go to Joint Base Cape Cod, and we asked for some clarity. And they wrote us back and gave us a little bit of direction, but that both sides needed to do more research. And then about 2 weeks after that, I know I shared with you individually, we got an email from an attorney from the Department of Environmental Protection that drastically changes, I guess, what our assumption has been all along about if we ran a conveyance system in town, that would be covered by SRF funds, which is not as important as the Cape and Islands funds because that's 25% principal forgiveness. But then once we crossed the base boundary, that's where the trouble was hit, and that's why we refiled our special act, which it's very clear now that at least a couple of state departments, I don't think, support our efforts on the special act. So questions have been raised that if the ultimate endpoint for our treatment is a privately owned treatment plant, which is what it is out at the base, that any conveyance system, even in town, might not be eligible for SRF funds. So in light of that, we haven't tried to panic. We've had a couple of meetings with town council, John Giorgio, and we had one yesterday with Heather, Dave Mason, and I, and John. And John wants to call a couple attorneys that he's worked with previously at the state level just to get their opinion. But we think it's a big enough change. It sort of guides us more that we'll probably have to do things, at least in phase 1, locally instead of regionally at the base. But we want to find out a little bit more. So we think it would be really important if we held like basically a wastewater workshop that John's able to come to at our meeting on May 15th. So I know that's the first board meeting after the election. But, we'll do some of the usual stuff that we do early on in the night. But I think the meat of the night, if you guys are okay with it, John is available before he goes away for a month at the end of May. So we would really like to get him in while we have him. And I really, if there's questions about this opinion, like I can't answer it. It's very disheartening because it's literally been, more than a decade of work, many times with the top officials at DEP sitting on that stage multiple times, emails to all these departments constantly, all the outreach about our special act, everything that we've done. It seems like the story's changing. And we don't control that, but I don't know. I think once John finds out a little bit more, like that meeting on the 15th would be pretty informative about how we should head, at least in the short term. And I don't think we should ever give up our regional efforts with our neighbors, including the base. We got to keep trying that, but if the numbers are showing us that it's far cheaper to do it on our own, we don't have a choice. And so we're also working on that with Wright Pierce, just an extremely high-level estimate. If certain things were covered by SRF, if they weren't, if we went to the base, if we stayed local. We're trying to come up with a really simple chart on a really complex spreadsheet. The first draft we saw had a page and a half of assumptions. The last thing the board or the public needs to hear is a page and a half of assumptions about why, engineers think one way or the other. We're just trying to boil it down to basics. So we're going to work on that.
Was there a change? I mean, like, I just, and then who instituted that change? I mean, that.
Yeah, we haven't heard anything.
Because when we started this, it was a public, I mean, the whole, when this was, it was not privately owned. when we started this
Right.
project, and this was owned by the Air Force, and we were gonna,
Right.
you know, pump everything out to the base. I just, this is like the ugly side of government, and when you hear those words like, we're the government, we're here to help, that makes everybody nervous, because it's things like this that happen. It's just, it's like you get the rug pulled right out from under you, and it's like 10 years of good work goes right out the window, and they know damn well that by saying they're not gonna reimburse us for that percentage of the work, that puts the entire project cost back on a small municipality in Cape Cod that can't afford to do this to begin with. And that other towns have done, you know, very similar things, or that they've gone to, you know, treatment plants that have gone private after they've gone there, and they didn't, you know, they got theirs paid for. It's just that it seems like we take an extraordinary amount of blows to the head. I mean, like, you think about the Section 111, we're the first ones to go through, we're the first ones to go through with a cap. We try to do the whole sewer thing, and then we get clipped, you know, with it. You know, it's just so infuriating. I mean, and then I guess, so I asked that question, like, what changed, and then who can make the change? You know, like, so that's.
Yeah, I don't think we have answers to any of that. All I can tell you is, you know, we got 3 of the biggest regional state grants in state history for those,
Right.
you know, with the 4 Upper Cape towns plus Barnstable, and every single one of those was geared towards literally the titles of the request, which they approved, were how can the 5 towns work with Joint Base Cape Cod on a regional wastewater solution. And as you guys know, it's a different answer for all 5 towns, but ultimately all 5 of us could use something. It's also fair to say that if you look at the sandwiches, CWRMP, the 3 phases, we're more able to do phase 1 on our own. Phases 2 and 3, like directly abut the base, like maybe that's when, but you know, who knows in 20 years what the rules will be or what we'll be looking at, but it's, I don't know, it's quite disheartening. And the first type of response we wanted to send to the state, I think, would be best characterized as aggressive and mad. And I think it's been a bit since we've talked about it. And I mean, John Giorgio, I think, is one of our collective heroes in terms of his knowledge, but also himself as a person. And he even said, and he's probably more upset than we are. What good does it do? If this is the stance they're going to take, and there's some things that we want to check on with other attorneys who've worked with the SRF program in the past too, he knows. So, I mean, there might be a different answer in mid-May, but I think it's important enough, based on our discussion yesterday, is we feel we need to bring you up to speed, and we should do it in public because it could be a change. And if there ever needed to be a crystal clear example why we all worked so hard over the last 14 months about that property, now's your answer.
Right. I'm all for blowing the doors off on the letter.
Yeah.
It's just, that's.
And I did reach out to a Cape nonprofit leader who was, you know, very active at the SRF and oversaw it years ago. And his feelings were almost the exact same as John's.
There really are 2 different issues too at play. Because one issue is the use of the MMR, whatever, joint base for a treatment plant as having an advantage to us because we don't have to build one. But then the separate issue is the funding for whatever we put in the ground under SRF. And I think we need to be careful not to put too many eggs in the basket of Joint Base Cape Cod. Because that's a wish that we might happen. But putting pipes in the ground is going to happen. So that's why I think we have to direct our testimony to 2 different elements and not get them so intertwined as though they can't be, because they don't have to be to one issue.
And I think those 3
I'm concerned
studies,
about that.
those 3 studies showed, as we've talked ad nauseum, the biggest issue at the base is the effluent disposal and the quantity that would be needed for the 5 towns, plus all the base tenants, and there's dozens of them. And then, in addition, their treatment plant is old, so they could take probably Sandwich's Phase 1 volume without doing too much additionally, but anything more from themselves, from us, from another town, you know, you'd basically have to build a brand new plant, which, if you see how old their one is, you need to do that eventually. So when you look at the numbers, which Wright Pierce has been helping us with, on a bigger picture, if the assumptions we've had all along, you know, if we build conveyance systems in town and that's all covered until we cross the base boundary, so they had like 3 columns, one to show that scenario is if our special act didn't pass and when we cross the boundary it's not covered by SRF. Then they had one that showed what if we were all covered, and then what if we did it on our own. Surprisingly, those numbers aren't drastically different. I mean, they're better with the special act. They're better if we had SRF for everything going to the base. But they're not drastically different. And when you take out that mix of what we just heard, it's drastically in favor of doing it local, like tens of millions of dollars. So, I mean, I think it'll be a worthwhile discussion, and we just think we should do it sooner rather than later. And I don't think it means we stop working with the base. It doesn't mean we stop trying to get things changed, because down the road there could be things that we could help them with, or vice versa. And I think the other towns feel the same way. It's just their problems are so much bigger than ours. They're having to do stuff on their own, and they're already started it, with the exception of Bourne. They're way ahead of us, you know, for good reason, because their problems are bigger than ours, which is something we've tried to get across to the public. Like, as bad as it is here, it's a lot worse in other places. But I think once we get some of this information compiled and we show you some of these documents, we're not going to have much of a choice in the end.
Whenever you're faced with a long-term, large capital project, you want stability of information down the road. So you don't want to make a deal with the devil, and then 5 years hence, we get a different president, a different Congress, a different view of that, and then we're left holding the bag. So that's going to be important for us, looking down the road, to not have the rules change on us 5 years out, 10 years out.
I mean, when you look at the volume of outreach and meetings and emails, things on state letterhead, attendance lists from multiple meetings, like who's at the meetings, what level, multiple agencies, like to have this come up late is perplexing.
It's just like, it's just waste, right? I mean, it's waste of time, which is the most precious thing that we have, and money. I mean, you know, all the planning that you did, it's enraging.
I will say, because I think, you know, we've all done this long enough, that if we did something at the base, the time it takes to do anything at the base, to get simple documents signed, to get things authorized by the federal government, it's years and years longer than if we do stuff ourselves. So if there is a silver lining, we could probably start acting sooner. And don't forget, our phase 1 volume is not a lot. All 3 phases don't even total 1 million gallons per day. Like, that's small compared to other places.
Right.
I think phase 1 is under like 350,000 gallons.
Would it make sense, and I'm just thinking out loud, is because it takes so long to get signatures on the base, is there an adverse reaction if we said we want to go to the base just to get the signatures, and then at the last minute change our mind? Like,
Yeah, see, now that they've given the control and the ownership of the plant to a private entity, I don't think it changes. I don't know. And I think we should invite Converge to our meeting in mid-May, because I've been very upfront with them about the email and then our conversation yesterday. So
It wouldn't hurt.
no, it's just really, really frustrating.
So which department overall said no to using the?
State Treasurer's Office expressed concerns, and their bond counsel from a large firm in Boston was on the call. So they were questioning a lot of what we were trying to do with our special act. And then this came from an attorney with DEP. But those are the two primary players in all this stuff. Because you need your permits from DEP, and you need your money, or, you know, the authorization from the SRF from the State Treasurer's Office. And we're not even talking about EPA. Like, they haven't given us an answer for years for simple questions. That's the other thing. Like,
They won't.
I found so many letters to people and emails, like, can you please send us a letter of support? Like, what is your, and Heather can attest, every single meeting we've ever had, the first words out of my mouth, we're adults. If the answer is no on this, please tell us no right now. And that's how we end the meeting. And I bet you we've said that 20 times at different meetings over the last 8 years. So it sounds like they might be telling us no now, but we have to figure that out. I know it's not fair for me to say all this stuff without you having a whole bunch of paperwork in front of you, but I think when we meet, I think John should do most of the talking. Like, the technical stuff from Dave, and we're even telling Ed Leonard, we don't even think you need to come, because, like, we're not talking about technical things. We're talking about cost estimates and, more policy things, not how do you treat wastewater? We know that. How big do we need to build? We know that. How much effluent do we need? We know that. Like, that's all stuff we can achieve. Mm-hmm. And no doubt we could do it much faster on our own than if we were at the base. But we've always felt in the long run, the base made the most sense.
I know that you're going to chuckle when I say this.
Yeah.
But what about for our May meeting, we invite the state treasurer and the head of the Mass DEP to come down and explain why we're now, after 10 years, not going to get our money? I would at least send the invitation, knowing they're going to say no, or they'll send the college intern, but let them come down and tell everybody in town why we don't qualify after getting a yes answer for 10 years. I'm all for that.
See, they haven't given us.
Could they
haven't
be
given us
part of
an
our
answer.
workshop? I mean, invite them to our workshop.
I'd want to defer to John. I think there's some things he wants to talk to us about. And we both said, like, we'd rather do it in public.
Yeah.
Even technically, you could do some of this executive session. We should talk about it in public, because we've talked about it all in public for so long.
Yeah.
There are no secrets with it.
No.
It's going to be expensive. It's just when you hear things like that, it's just.
And I don't want to prejudice you one way or the other. Like, let's see what info we get. We'll give you the backup. But at least on the surface of it, it looks like what was going to be a struggle. It's almost a no-brainer if that's what the answer is.
Yeah, and if you also know that the Joint Base Treatment Plant is fighting an historical PFAS volume, then that's even more incentive for us to go to a new, clean facility and not have to participate in the cleanup of it when they get to year 10 and we've all met, we've met all the quantity minimums for the towns, and then suddenly we're going to be getting a bill from them to rebuild the plant and fight the PFAS accumulation.
Or they turn into a super fun site or something.
Yeah. It's,
Let's see what John finds out. We'll plan on it on the 15th.
I think that's a
And we'll
good
give you as much backup as we can and just try to talk at a higher level, because that's what most of this is. And the nice part about it is we could literally say later this summer, Wright Pierce, give us a contract to do the formal construction plans for the conveyance system for the downtown area heading up, or heading down, but up the hill, up 130, because either way, it's going that way. At least we could get some real work going. And that's exactly what the WIF money's for, because that's not even SRF eligible anyway. And the bigger thing, don't forget, is like the Cape and Islands money doesn't go away. That 25%, As long as we, the stuff, if we do it all in town, there's no question, 100% of it's SRF eligible. We just need to get their okay, and then we get the 25%. That's huge.
Yeah.
That didn't exist when we did the CWRMP 2018.
But that still remains a realistic
Yeah,
opportunity?
yeah, definitely. As long as we don't apparently have the end treatment system be privately owned.
What about privately managed?
That's
Yeah,
fine.
you can have a.
We don't want to run it.
I know, right.
My goal is not to have our goal is not to have a single additional town staff person
Right.
when we have this sewer line all in place.
Right.
We're privatizing the operation and oversight.
Right.
We can't run it.
We're gonna have it. You're gonna want at least one municipal
And user fees have to pay that cost. That's how it's all done.
to be motivated, not by profit.
I'm still confused, though, if you don't mind, that now that the plant at the base is privately owned, how can they do this to them?
Yeah, I don't know, because they're gonna. I guess the part that sometimes I find perplexing is the state forgets that the base is the state's. The state owns 15,000 of the 23,000 acres, and they own the plant. Like the 102nd Air Force Wing, yeah, it reports to big U.S. Air Force. It's a state Air National Guard unit. They were the ones that were overseeing it for years and forever. They wanted to get rid of it because they would always claim, which I can't dispute it, they're the only guard unit in the country that oversaw utilities, water, wastewater, and electric. And they've divested themselves of all of it. In hindsight, I almost wonder, should we have formed a wastewater collaborative like they formed the Upper Cape Water Supply Collaborative?
Yeah.
But, their operations are different. It's more like getting public water to share, not install a bunch of infrastructure like we're going to have to do. I mean, the other towns, there's reasons the other towns were in discussions and then they totally backed out because their problems are bigger. They have to do it on their own. But it's sort of defeating. I know I'm going on a rant too early, but Cape Cod Commission, to their credit, for 25 years has been telling us embayments cross town boundaries. You all have to work together. The whole Section 208 plan is the epitome of a region working together to address a massive problem. The state itself, DEP, the same people who sent this letter, adopted regulations a little more than a year ago that only impact Cape Cod. And the whole thing is you can either force people to install innovative septic systems that don't work, but you can force them to do that. They haven't been proven to work yet. They haven't permitted them themselves. Or you can sign watershed agreements with the towns that you contribute water to, and as a group, in our case, in each of the watersheds, 3 towns need to work together on a watershed permit on how we're going to address it. But you better solve the problem on your own. You can't work with each other on it. That's baffling. And their response would be, well, it's because it's a private treatment plant. What about the watershed? There's a watershed technically in the town of Sandwich that's only on the base, doesn't cross the boundary, so we don't contribute a drop to it. So when they met with us to roll out the NSA regulations, there's 4 watersheds you have to permit. I'm like, no, there's 3. The force on the base, you own the land, you have to permit that. We have nothing to do with it. So how are they going to address that without hooking up to the treatment plant there? That'll be interesting. I don't know. All I can tell you is if you look at the attendance sheets on some of these meetings we had, who things have been sent to, it's perplexing at best. And no one's disputing the part about the private treatment system. That's what the base decided to do. They wanted to, Honestly, when you look at the numbers, it'll probably save us more money in the long run. I don't know, at least short term. But they're bigger problems we're going to need to address 30, 40 years from now that
Right.
the base is going to have to be a part of it. That's the hard part. Anyway. Sorry.
Don't be sorry. It's all,
Mid-May, and the only other thing I want to update, I should have said it in my report, but I know when we talked about Tom Cahare's untimely passing at the RTA, the group let enough time go by, so our most recent meeting when we adopted our budget was on Tuesday morning, and so we also voted to proceed with the search process. So we volunteered, meaning Sandwich volunteered to run the search process. They have 12 employees, so Marie Buckner is going to run the search process with the executive committee from the RTA. Believe it or not, we ran it the last time when he was hired, so we have all the stuff still on our computers, so we're working on that, and an ad could go out as quickly as next week, but, because I know how Tom has been so great to our town, it's sort of good to help them out a little bit, so, sort of pay it back.
okay. Anybody else? Okay, recommended appointment. Kristen Franklin, alternate member, Historic District Committee. There's a letter in our file from Pete Williams. A one-year appointment for the 2025 calendar year. Anybody have a comfort with that? Anybody have any comment?
Make a motion, we appoint an alternate member, Christian Feikeman, to a one-year term for the 2025 calendar year.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hockner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Other matters not reasonably anticipated by other chairman, I have none. Anybody still here for public comment? Okay. Closing remarks. I'd just like to continue to maintain those under attack in Eastern Europe and in the Middle East, as well as the overall threats to world peace in our thoughts and prayers. Motion to adjourn until Thursday, May 1st at 7 p.m. here in Historic Town Hall.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hockner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. See you next Thursday night, folks. Have a good week.